Germany played most important role in Europe, and Japan in what is called Pacific theater. World War II is divided into two theaters, European theater and Pacific theater. Japan was the aggressor here, and Germany in Europe, also assisted by Italy. Germany, Japan, and Italy are called Axis powers. Okay. How did Japan come to this position? Is a very important issue. Its story is very unusual, very unusual. So let us discuss what was going on in Japan at that time. Because Japan made it in few decades as a powerful nation. Before it became modern, the political system that was there in Japan was called Shogunate. Shogunate. Okay. Shogunate is equivalent to the word kingdom. Kingdom. Equivalent to the word kingdom. And equivalent to king is shogun. Okay. But why should a leader be called shogun and not the king? Because there is already one person who is called emperor with a semi-divine status. Semi-divine status. So emperor was a very important, occupied a very important position in Japan. And emperor did not have many powers. So the powers in the system were exercised by who was called shogun. Okay. How does this work? It works like this. Shogun and entire Japan is divided into certain territories. Okay. Shogun is the leader, and each territory is, you can say, domain of who are called daimyos, daimyo, D-I-M-Y-O, daimyos. So daimyos are ruling a domain like this. And at one time there are 200, in last shogunate there were around 200 land holding daimyos. 200 daimyos. And shogun himself controlled 1/4 of Japan as his own. Okay. So what you can say is some kind of centralized feudalism. Centralized feudalism. You can say this is centralized feudalism. Okay. So how is this different from normal kingdoms? There is a shogun as well as another emperor. That is one difference. Second thing is, under each daimyo, there were people who constituted professional warriors who are called samurai. Samurai is like a caste. Samurai cannot take up, for example, trade or other occupations. So daimyos employ samurai. So this is like a warrior classes, almost a caste. Shogun himself has a samurai and 1/4 of Japan under the last shogunate. And then Japanese society consists of farmers, artisans, and traders in that order. This is hierarchy. Farmers next, artisans, and then traders. Traders occupied lower position. And then there are commoners. Okay. And samurai caste made up of 7% of the population. Okay. So this was the position that was under what was called Tokugawa Shogunate. What is Tokugawa? Tokugawa is the name of the clan. Tokugawa Leyasu was the founder of Tokugawa Shogunate. He lived between 1542 to 1616. Before this man established Tokugawa Shogunate, people used to fight a lot. Fight along the clan lines. And this man brought era of peace and made and during his rule, Edo, which is Tokyo, was the capital. Emperor was in Kyoto. Okay. What was started from 1540 plus, it remained till modern Japan. Okay. That is till 1800, which meant for 250 years. 250 years. And this shogunate followed isolation, which is called in Japan sakoku, isolation. But before this isolation, it was opened. In 1543, Portuguese entered and Christianity entered. By 1600, 3 lakh became Christians. So, if not for this particular Tokugawa shogunate, modernization could have spread. Maybe it could have been colonized. But modernization blocked, isolation took place, sakoku took place. And then those who were Christians were forced to convert back, and missionaries were sent because they started taking part in politics, interfering with the government. So missionaries sent, Christianity discouraged, and so it was a policy of isolation, except that some Dutch merchants allowed to stay. Those merchants allowed to stay, because of which some people had access to science texts. But within this peaceful period of shogunate, one important change took place. Because shogunate gave peace, samurai importance came down. Samurai importance came down because there was no war to fight. And traders became more important. Okay. So this is closer to caste system, but with mobility, with some mobility. Hierarchy. And definitely it is a Kshatriya rule in terms of India, in terms of Hindu order. It is a Kshatriya rule. Okay. So, but unusually, emperor and shogun were different. Okay. So this was what was called shogunate period. Okay. Now tell me, what questions do you have on this? Because I found in the history textbooks, they use these words and it is, you don't have a clue to what these words are. And more importantly, when Japan fought so violently, I wanted to know what was the source of the violence. Why were they doing like that? Okay. Now tell me, what doubts do you have on this? What was traditional Japan? Karim, are you clear? Are you came late?
Yes, sir. I just joined 5 minutes back. So.
Okay, fine. KS, are you clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, understood, sir.
You also joined late, or you are clear?
No, sir. I joined before the Japan.
Okay, fine. Okay. So, any doubts? Deepika, is it clear to you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Basically, these words, remember, shogunate, samurai, daimyo. Okay. Sakoku, Tokugawa. Okay. So, this was traditional Japan. Feudal, caste-like, agrarian, traditionally violent, but during the last shogunate, much more peaceful. Sunil, any questions?
Was there conflict between the emperor and shogun?
Conflict was settled by the time this shogunate was established. He eliminated all his rivals and established his power.
So emperor was in good
Emperor
terms with
became
him.
less important. Okay. But why was he not eliminated? Because of semi-divine status. Okay. Because of semi-divine status, he was not touched. He was not like any other king.
Or is it hereditary? Hereditary or?
Hereditary, of course. Hereditary. Emperor is hereditary and shogunate also is hereditary. Why it is called Tokugawa Shogunate? Because Tokugawa was a clan and the same people were inheriting the shogunate. It is just that we normally use the word kingdom and here they are using shogunate. That's all. Because there is already one king. Otherwise, they would have called it king. But samurai is some distinct tradition. It is like it is a caste contributing to warriors. But this shouldn't be, I mean, complete surprise to India, because in India also some castes contribute more and the mobility is less in a caste system, and then hierarchy also is common in India.
Sir, sir, we do have a warrior class like Kshatriya class. For some clans, we have Kshatriya class, Kshatriya
Exactly.
Varna.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
how are the different in the sense? these people ruled exactly. These people ruled, but they also did wars and all.
See, for example, Daimyo are the people who employ samurais. So all of them belong to professional warriors. Daimyos have land. They're like landlords. Landlords employing people with willing to fight. It is like that. You can say
Fight against whom, sir?
Okay, fight against whom? Because there used to be full of clan warfare in Japan. Internal.
So there is no sort of similar to India. There is no sort of modern nationalism.
There was no
nationalism.
No, exact. No
Japan
modern.
as a whole.
We are talking about traditional Japan.
Yes. Okay. So
Yes.
there is nothing called Japan as a whole.
This was called Japan. That's all. There was nothing like belonging to Japan. It is not like that. There was no nationalism as such. Thank you. There was no nationalism as such. But all were subjected to a particular economic system, particular political framework. It was like that. But then all of them were agreed to king as the emperor as the of divine status. So in that sense, there is a unity. Okay. But cultural unity is not the same thing as cultural similarity is not the same thing as nationalism. Nationalism, you can say it has not yet come. Okay, it's not modern nationalism.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
Naveen,
sir.
you have any questions?
Yeah, was there some sort of industrialization during this time?
No. No, there was only some trade. That's all. Very little, no industrialization. No. No. Primarily agrarian. Okay. Even little bit of exposure to modernization is because of some Christianity and Portuguese contacts, and some people remained, because of which some people knew science. That's all.
So the religion they converted from Christianity to Buddhism,
And
right?
again converted back. Those many Christians were persecuted to be reconverted to the old religion. The old religion being some form of Buddhism. Okay. So you are clear what was traditional Japan, right? Any questions? Next, I'll tell you how modernization took place. Okay. Okay. So the reason for modernization was humiliation by whom they considered barbarians. That is Western people. They were shocked. They were proud people, and they were just shocked. And they realized that unless something drastic is done, they will be colonized like other countries. And they did not want to be colonized. Shocking thing about Japan is that they understood unless modernized, they would be colonized. And they went about modernizing. No country did the way Japan did. Very fast, voluntary. It is like this. Okay. In 1853-54, Japan was forced to be opened by US Commodore Matthew Perry. The Navy came, and these people did not want, but he didn't agree. There was a fight. And this followed unequal treaties with the US and other powers. What is meant by unequal treaty? Basically, Western powers win and they establish ports and they get some rights against the will of the locals. They had this with China and they have this with Japan. Some felt that Shogun should check these people out, but Shogun was not in a position to do. Then Japanese realized that they were weak, but they were a proud people and they realized that they were weak and something drastic had to be done. And that's what they did. They restored Meiji rule. Meiji was an emperor. Okay. This is called Meiji restoration. Why is it called restoration? Because Shogunate was abolished. And Meiji restored. Meiji ruled between 1868 to 1912. Okay. So it was ruled. So it was in 1868 restoration took place and capital moved to Tokyo. And before that there was conflict with Western naval forces in where Japan was defeated. So essentially modernization started with Meiji restoration, 1868. And what did they do? You know, they changed tradition. They changed political structures. Old ones dropped. Modernization introduced. Education introduced. Mobility introduced. And after the introduction of modernization, they did their own innovation in war, in navy. And they thought we are not inferior to anybody. So though in Asia, they wanted to be like European power. And Japan succeeded to become on par with the European power. Okay. And they did everything so fast. They started the story in 1870. And by 1904, that is in 35 years, they attacked Russia and won the war. Shocked the world. Just in 35 years. And these are the people who bombed US in 40s. Or who struck, that is not bombing, fine. Okay. Okay, now what did they do? Look at Daimyo domains were abolished in 1871. And Daimyo samurai forces removed. Samurai privileges removed. Even the swords were taken away in 1876. They were so proud of their swords. Several attempts by samurai failed to rebel Failed. And then they said people are free to move or take up any occupation. So the ruling classes, this is also called Meiji Revolution. It is called restoration as well as revolution. Restoration is nominal. What was going on was abolition of shogunate, abolition of traditional ruling classes. And then coming to the peasants, land redistributed. Land markets developed. How can we develop land market? Proper surveying, allotting land to the peasant so that land can be mortgaged, sold, and used as a proper investment. They did. And peasants pay money to the government directly and not services to the daimyo, which means not a judgmani service, not a judgmani system. Cash and to the government. Judgmani is the word relevant in the context of Varna system. It was like that before, but they stopped. So it's about agriculture. And next, new financial system of taxes, banks, currency included. Transport, which included railways. Industrialization took place. And then new farm called Zaibatsu, which are government assigned large corporate, government assisted large corporates emerged. Government assisted corporates. That is why the capitalism that worked in Japan and currently in China is different. Government assisted industrial houses. So they were called Zaibatsu. And then they gave a lot of importance to education. By 1900, government provided 6 years of free education for nearly everyone. Within 30 years. Hundreds of students sent abroad. But then even before, sent abroad annually, but even before restoration, 40% literacy rate, which was highest in Asia. Okay. So that was, and then they framed a new constitution in 1889. What was the nature of constitution? Vote only to 5% of men, limited franchise. Those who had property or some other qualification. And more power to king. So it is not a constitutional monarchy as of Britain. They followed German constitution, which was authored by Bismarck. Why was Bismarck an inspiration? Because Bismarck unified Germany and he made Germany very powerful. So Japanese were watching Germany. So they wanted to emulate Germany. So the Shinto faith, making emperor a quasi-divine figure, was retained. So they did not affect something central to their culture. Next, representative bodies at prefectural level. What is a prefecture? Prefecture is not the same thing as previous daimyo domains. Daimyo domains were eliminated and a new system of prefecture was created. Unrepresented. These like local self-government. And political parties emerged in 1880s. But ministers are responsible to emperor and not to the parliament. And military not under the civilian control. Okay. Emperor's powers are actually exercised by officials. Okay. So these are all the changes introduced. And we can examine the biography of one person who played an important role in this modernization. This tells you how a person can influence. Fukuzawa Yukichi. He is called father of modern Japan. 1835 to 1901. Studied in the port cities of Nagasaki and Okasa. Port cities have more Western influence. He was a part of government fact-finding missions to the US, 1859, 1862, and Europe, 1867. Why were those government fact-finding missions being sent? They wanted to find out how US was run. But why US? Because it was US that defeated Japan. And then this man wrote 10-volume Conditions in the West during the period of 1867 to 1870. Okay. And then wrote, translated, and published more than 100 books on the US and Europe. So it is not that this was after, okay, around that time, restoration and before, certain things before, around that time, it was going on. So he is considered father of modern Japan. Then he advocated educational reforms to emphasize practical knowledge, rational thinking, rather than the Confucian poetry-based curriculum, and set up a college in 1868, which became a university now. He didn't take up any government position though. Okay. But in the end, he supported Japanese expansionism and said military force would trump ideals of diplomacy. This in his writings, but he was not around there when Japan was expanding, because he died by 1901. So he visited Europe and US and wrote books, and the books were very popular. And so this is how Japan changed so fast. 35 years. So what do you say about this? What is it that any country should learn?
We cannot achieve that feat right in the current situation also.
What is that?
Sir, we cannot get that kind of progress in the current situation also.
Exactly. It's an amazing story, isn't it? Amazing. You just understand as a society you are backward, and then you go about changing. One individual can't change. How can a country change? And that's what happened here. So 1870 it was nowhere, and by 1904 it attacks USSR. Sorry, Russia. Okay. So why was it like that? So what do you think about it?
Sir, how was people's acceptance gained, sir? I did not understand actually. How was people's acceptance gained?
Not everybody accepted, but some people imposed. Samurai revolts took place. Daimyo didn't like. Some peasants didn't like, but they just imposed things. Few people did this.
Well, suppression was used. Suppression was used.
Yes, suppression. Some people, there were revolts.
Sir,
it is not that everybody was convinced and they did it. It's few people did it because most people were convinced that something was wrong with Japan. If you ask me, basically they were very proud people, samurai spirit, defeated and felt deeply hurt, changed.
What I don't understand is if this was done to some state or at least one district of India, the impact will be on basically the focus will be on tradition. How can you demolish the tradition? How can you change the tradition?
Exactly.
How did this traditional change was accepted even by rulers? How did they accept?
In fact, that's true. There was resistance, but somehow they went all out to change their dress, even to change food habits, dress habits, and many changes took place. I think eating habits, so many things changed. Diet. They were there in videos, but they're not there in the book. But we can give more details.
So if leaders are progressive enough, a country can change.
That's true.
Keeping the means aside.
That's true. That's true. Some people were convinced and they forced change. Okay. But of course, the whole thing must be unusual only because no country changed like this. No country changed like this. Only Japan. No country became a great power within just 3+ decades from being nowhere.
Sir, I believe there could be one reason is that the population was less. So first reason is that the population was less, and so the leaders could convince the people that see US could come and force a treaty on us. So better we change. If not, we won't be there. That's the reason everyone got convinced.
That is true. Either you be enslaved or change. That is the slogan.
So only two options.
Two options.
And since bigger countries don't have this liberty to convince everyone, and the population is large, so more diverse opinions, and that's the reason they could not adapt so fast.
Okay. Could be. And also they were saying higher literacy rate. Smaller country, more homogeneous population. And then some exposure earlier. People were reading some Western. Okay. But on the whole, it is a rare story. Nobody, I mean, it's rare because it just did not happen anyway. Okay. Now, how is this related to war? Let us see what happens now.
Sir, one question.
Please.
Sir, since from the Daimyo time, there was a centralized power which was ruling, right?
That's true. That's called Shogunate.
Shogunate. Whole Japan. No part was left out.
Yes, no part was left out.
Sir, if we see the parallel with our country, so there was a Mughal Empire, but it did not cover whole of the country.
Exactly.
So that could also be one of the reasons that they are good hold.
Shogunate peace centralization also makes it vulnerable for change. I mean, if somebody attacks the center, then everything changes. If it is not one center, then it becomes difficult.
Right.
That's true. But now let us see what happened and what kind of battles it fought. Do you think a culture like this is war prone?
Yes, sir, very much.
Why is it so?
Any uniform tendencies can be easily changed.
Any?
Uniform tendencies can easily be changed.
Okay, uniform, homogeneous. That is true. But why does it become war prone then?
Sir, I think you said that humiliation made them to grow such faster. That made them reform and transform suddenly, and that led to aggression.
Yes. But maybe we can point out one more reason. The entire samurai tradition.
Yes.
Samurai tradition. Their proud, fierce, giving importance to self-respect, courage, and not caring for life. Okay. Not caring for life. They are ready to kill, ready to die. Okay. So my understanding is that this samurai spirit, this is the essential spirit, was there because it was only very fast modernization. And on this samurai spirit came nationalism and weaponry, modern weaponry. Okay. And exposure to the world where colonialism was going on. So we can also be like great powers. We were humiliated before. We can be great powers. And also, it was a small country without natural resource base. And they felt they should occupy more land to be powerful. And that is how these wars started. First, 1895. War with China got Ryukyu Islands and Taiwan. Traditionally, China was a great power, and Japan was such a small island around China. But Japan modernized and took on China. This shocked Chinese. That is the power of modernization. And next shock is delivered to Russia, 1904-5, Russia-Japanese war, and Russia defeated. And you know, this contributed to 1905 revolution. 1910, Korea annexed. Okay. And during 1920s and 30s, army became more powerful. How can one explain army becoming more powerful? Because in the constitution itself, army is not controlled by the civilians. Army is answerable to emperor. Even prime minister and the ministers are answerable to emperor and not to the parliament. So this continues to be a bureaucratic state rather than a democratic one. And in 1931, army seized Manchuria. Okay. And Japan disregarded League of Nations disapproval of its invasion of Manchuria in 1931. And Japan got away without any penalty. This is one of the cases that weakened League of Nations. Okay. And next, 1932, army in control effectively and withdrew from League. Actually, from Pacific Theater, in Pacific Theater and going by Japan's activities, World War II started in 1931. only in considering European theater, we say 1939 is the starting point of World War II. But if you consider Pacific theater, 1931. And next in 1936, it joined Hitler-sponsored anti-Comintern pact. Japan in World War I was with allies, allied powers, not with central powers. But in World War II, it sided with Hitler. Hitler was an inspiration. And in 1937, it went for war with China, with 1 million men there, 1 million Japanese soldiers. And what shocked the world was innumerable atrocities committed by Japanese army in what was called Rape of Nanjing, a city in 1937. Japanese did this to Chinese, beheading, burning alive, infants choked to pieces, even older women raped. Because military code is not to respect their own lives as well as that of enemies. But why were they doing like this? The point is, terrorize. If you terrorize, they may submit. So if one city is terrorized like this, then other cities will not give any resistance and they will submit. So military theory, military philosophy is that terrorize the civilian population, army, okay, and they'll be too frightened and then they will submit. That is it. So it is samurai ideology entering modern warfare. Okay. So this is what happened. And they went about doing like this. Japan in 1939. Japan in 1939 had all these areas, the Japan color and Manchuria. These are all Chinese areas. Okay. And then some island groups and some ports of China. This is what Japan in 1939. And of course, Korea, 1910. Okay. And then it was its peak in 1942. Japan in 1942. Japan in 1942 occupied all these areas. Do you know it came to India? British army and Japanese army fought at Imphal. They wanted to take Australia as well as India. These are all the areas that Japan won by 1942. Okay. But what happened? One major miscalculation. Miscalculation was Japan attacked Pearl Harbor in December 1941. Brought US into the war. Okay. And then from US participation from 1943 onwards, war started changing. From 1943, it was very clear that Japan would lose, but then they did not surrender. Many more were killed. Japan was I mean, those people won't surrender, nor they treat the people surrendered well. They killed many prisoners of war. So to die or to kill, that is the ideology. No peace, no surrender. and frighten the people to submission. And finally, on August 6, 1945, Truman, Roosevelt was no more by then, ordered bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. August 1945. So with this, World War II ends and total casualties were 30 million. And from the Japanese side, the man who was responsible for many evils was this man, Hideki Tojo, born in samurai family. He was army general for most part of World War II and also PM during 1941-44. PM resigned in 1941 because he didn't like this general's plans. And the general himself became the prime minister. And before that, he was a minister of war in the cabinet. He was an advocate of preemptive attack on the US, numerous war crimes, massacres of civilians and prisoners of war, sexual enslavement, and for rape of Nanjing. How did he do these things? How did he come to power? Similar to Hitler and Mussolini was that people opposed to imperial ambitions were dealt with before, like communists. Surveillance state was created. So he promoted the idea that Japanese were superior, they have the right to expand. So this is racism, nationalism, militarism, and elimination of the opponents. And finally, on a suicidal mission, he wanted to commit suicide at the end, but he failed to commit. He wanted to shoot exactly at the heart, and instead of a heart, he missed it and he shot at his stomach. And as he failed, troops came in and arrested him, and finally he was hanged as per the judgment of the tribunal in 1948. So, like Mussolini and Hitler in Italy and Germany, Tojo was in Japan doing similar things. Okay. Now tell me, Naveen.
Histories are driven by a person.
Exactly. Few mad people in this case. But do you see what is common? They eliminate the opposition. They eliminate the opposition, and that makes them popular. This is what we did in the class on fascism. They don't have to eliminate so many people. Just identify critical groups, eliminate them, and propaganda, deception, and they're popular. You know, all these three are popular till the last minute. Three nations were responsible. Of course, one main, that was Hitler. Hitler, under Hitler's leadership, or direct or indirect.
I mean, the men are so much vulnerable to propaganda.
Exactly.
I mean, across the civilization.
Otherwise, you know, okay, please complete. Okay. Yes.
Yes, sir, just I was drawing parallels. I mean, there is no logical difference between Germany and Japan.
Exactly.
So, I mean, whatever we witnessed in other countries, the same thing happened. But one strange thing was Japan, which was such a peaceful for 250 years. And then, no, actually, what I'm trying to say, it is their weakness. It is their weakness. They were weak for good and weak for bad.
Means?
I mean, even they can be altered, even for goodness, even for badness.
Okay, they can change themselves in this way.
Yeah,
Or
like
that way.
one guy came and then they made it so much modern, so much modern for something good. And then other guy came and then they drove all the people to a bad thing.
That's true.
I mean, so much fragility. I mean,
That's
yeah.
true.
I mean,
Now they are
looking at this,
now they are so peaceful.
we don't know.
No, many changes took place in that society. We'll discuss. But things were very, very fast. Okay, Sunil, you want to say something?
Sir, both Hitler and Tojo took Thucydides' power concept really seriously.
That's true. But these are mad people.
Sir, I think
just one second. We'll compare, but let us complete Hitler and Mussolini, because then we'll get some uniform pattern. Any questions on Japan? Karim, you have any questions?
No, sir.
Case?
Sir, you mentioned that samurai spirit, the highly ambitious and ready to sacrifice.
Warlike.
So warlike. So the mobility that was allowed.
I think it is more specifically warlike. It is not just ambitious. You can be ambitious in business.
Yes, sir. Yes.
This is warlike.
So no sympathy and no respect for enemies. So but they were Buddhist earlier. So Buddhist principles they followed, because samurai has a honor code, as per my little knowledge about them.
True. That's true. But honor code of what? Honor code is not, I don't think honor code related to submission and things like that. So, see, basically, let me tell you, I mean, we look them as cruel, but how did they look at themselves?
Yes, sir. So they were, yes, sir, they were under the opinion that they're contributing to Japanese.
Moreover, this is, for example, in that Rape of Japanese City, they might say, you submit and why do you want to be killed like this? That is exactly that Thucydides' argument also, right? Why are you making us kill? You submit and accept peacefully. Otherwise, we will kill you. In fact, certain cities accepted, certain surrenders took place before. So if we do like this, things that you can't imagine, next some other cities seeing this will submit. So it is not that they are sadists and cruel. It is not like that. I don't
set an example.
Just one second. I don't think if you going by nature, Japanese are more cruel than US. It is not like that. US is a more evolved society. Because US and Britain came through evolution of many hundreds of years, right? This is a newfound power. Just one second. Take time. They appear cruel, but do they appear cruel to the Japanese? They may not think so. It's part of their bravery. That is just what they are for. They may have thought they are doing their duty. In fact, this particular military general did not say sorry, did not feel guilty. People tried, do you feel guilty? Do you regret? No, he said, I did what I was expected to do. Anyway, what makes us think Truman's bombing is peaceful and this Japanese actions were atrocious? Just with one simple order, he massacred 70,000 plus people. So
yes.
isn't it? Definitely American president and American people knew what would happen. And if they wanted to demonstrate, they would have demonstrated on a less populated place. They didn't do like that. So our idea of violence is using a knife and then seeing the blood like that. On the other hand, if you simply press a button and eliminate it, that is not called violence. Indians think of, for the sake of Kashmir, we'll use nuclear bombs. What is that? What kind of a talk is that? That is not violence. We talk about nuclear weapons as if there are some country bombs. How can one talk about them? So who is more violent? So we may say, for example, why did they rape like this? They could have killed, and why did they behead? Why did they use a sword? That's what history books are about. I mean, how could they do this? But then if you understand, you are shocked, and the purpose is to shock. To frighten. It is a war strategy. You submit otherwise if you don't like that violence.
Sir.
No, just take time.
Yes.
So they are not inhuman, devilish, not like that. But we are not saying that is how society should be, but they have not evolved. But it doesn't mean they are devils, inhuman, not like that.
Sir, in movies regarding German Holocaust of Jews and SS leaders, and those people were shown like they have no humanity or they have no concern.
We will look into that. We will look into that. Okay, we'll just come to Hitler and Mussolini, what happened to the Iran, and then we'll come back to the comparison.
Okay,
okay?
sir. Okay, sir.
So you had mentioned racism.
We'll come to that. Okay. How these people's career ended, Mussolini. Mussolini was, okay, let us come to main war, Germany. See, this is the general position of war. Between 1939 and 42, German and Japan were victorious. Between 42 to 43, Allied counterattack started. 44-45, Allied advance, and final victory in August 1945. Okay. The Second World War is said to have started on September 1st, 1939, with Germans lightning war into Poland. One point here is that, till this point, one can say Hitler was only undoing Versailles Treaty. Militarization of Rhineland, taking Austria, army conscription beyond 1 lakh, Air Force, undoing of Versailles Treaty. And then he took part of Czechoslovakia, which was German populated. That also may be okay. But then after that, he went about to take remaining part of Czechoslovakia. And then Britain and France very clearly understood war was inevitable. And Germany attacks Poland. But before this, Hitler signs a pact with Soviets in August. He didn't want war on the Russian front and also with France and Britain. And Stalin signed. In fact, Stalin would have been on the side of France and Britain. He wanted France and Britain to take his help when Hitler attacked Czechoslovakia, wanted to attack Czechoslovakia, but these people refused. So there was a signing agreement between Stalin and Hitler. This confused many communists all over the world, because Stalin was a communist and Hitler was a fascist, and how can a communist leader sign this? Okay, but Stalin did this because he also believed in imperialism and expanding Russian territory. So do you see nationalism is an important idea? Between nationalism and ideology, most people would say nationalism wins. So Russia became nationalist. Okay, so then in 1940, this is one of the most shocking things in the World War II. Hitler struck France and it fell within 6 weeks. Okay, you are able to see iPad, right? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Struck France and fell within 6 weeks. Shocking. And Churchill became prime minister just before the fall of France. Churchill played an important role in turning the tide against Hitler. Hitler wanted to win war with Britain also, but he was not successful. Hitler's major mistake, which most historians would say, is he's attacking Russia, June 1941. Hitler's problems began with this. That was called Operation Barbarossa, code name for attack on Russia. And it was Russia, you can say, which was greatly responsible for saving the world from fascism. 80% of German soldiers killed on the Russian front. One more fact is that 90% of German soldiers were occupied in fighting the Russian front. 90% of Russian soldiers, sorry, German soldiers. Okay. So, two major mistakes in the war. Number one, Hitler's attack of Russia and Japanese attack of US. Why did they do it? They became, I mean, the problem with propaganda is that they start propaganda to convince others, but in this process, they themselves become victims. Hitler was winning, starting from militarization of Rhineland to fall of France. Of course, his war with Britain was considered a draw rather than a defeat. But why did he go for war with Stalin? Do you know, there were many who warned Stalin, including Mao. But Stalin did not believe Hitler would do that. Because Stalin thought, why would Hitler do something so stupid? And this shows some people can behave irrationally. Hitler did not think, Hitler thought Stalin would believe him, and Stalin believed. Stalin did not think Hitler would cheat him. Irrational behavior. But why did Hitler do? He thought of so high of himself that he thought he could win Russia fast, or by the time USSR. Okay, but why do people attack like this? The calculation usually is that one day war is likely, but attacking them when they are unprepared is in your own interest. Japan also thought one day US would intervene. It won't allow the Southeast Asia and then this side of the Pacific or the Pacific Islands to itself, US won't agree. So there might be a war. Attack before. Okay. But there are major miscalculations. USA might not respond immediately, but USA was a huge military and huge industrial power. An industrial power under certain circumstances with less time can be converted into military power. That is what US did. Success in war is not because of samurai. It calls for industrial development. Okay. So Germany and Japan wanted to take on the world simply through aggressive spirit, which is not possible. So two major miscalculations, and then it seems they were not coordinated. Hitler did not tell Japan he was going to attack Russia. Nor Japan told Hitler that they were going to attack Harbor. Uncoordinated attacks. Okay, and now after this, the whole world against Germany and Japan. First they concentrated on Germany. Next, US first priority was Europe, and then Pacific. Okay, so finally they came in on 1945 May. On first, Hitler committed suicide along with his mistress. And another thing here is that what is common to Japanese General Tojo and Hitler is that they did not want surrender. They did not want to treat prisoners of war. Well, okay. Hitler wanted his men either to fight or commit suicide. Fight. When you can't, commit suicide. In fact, the decision to commit suicide gives them strength to fight. That seems to be the case. He said Hitler is influenced by Nietzsche philosophy. Nietzsche said, you have to take up a mission much more than what, in achieving which you should perish. And that is exactly what Hitler did. In achieving that, he perished. But of course, Nietzsche did not want insane actions, but Hitler was insane. Reasonable task in which be prepared to perish. That is what Nietzsche meant. But this is being insane. It is not a reasonable task. And then Hitler wanted civilian population also of the same spirit. He didn't want German army to surrender. Of course, from Russian side, Stalin also was like that. Russian soldiers were very, very clear that they had to fear, they had to fight, otherwise Stalin would kill them. So, but Stalin may have killed people internally, but he didn't go about killing people in other countries. He didn't have any racial agenda. But Hitler had a racial agenda. What was the racial agenda? He wanted a large territory for Germans without others. So where should others go? They should be killed. That was the reason. and some people are particularly loathsome. Jews were the first. So he wanted a huge territory for Aryans. So he had to kill others. It is not like winning militarily and then subordinating the other country for economic reasons or others. No. So that was the justification for Hitler's violence. For example, think of what he did regarding Jews. At an early stage, Jews used to be shot and buried in mass graves. But so many were being added to Germany's future empire, because as Germany was occupying more people, more lands, and more Jews also were coming. And then they thought of gas chambers and crematoria. At this particular place, Auschwitz in Poland, 1 million Jews were killed in 3 years. Of course, some are non-Jews also, which meant 12,000 per day. Like a factory to burn humans. So Hitler's violence can be explained in terms of bringing pure German race in a vast territory. What happened to Mussolini? Of these three, Mussolini was the weakest. This is how his end came. In 1941, Italy was ousted from Ethiopia by Britain. He lost power by 1943. King ejected Mussolini from office and had him arrested. Mussolini resigned to his fate, but then Hitler did not. He rescued by Hitler, and Hitler installed Mussolini as a ruler in a Nazi-occupied area in Italy. So it means he was made a ruler of a puppet regime. And Hitler gave certain conditions to Mussolini. Hitler asked him to send Jews to death camps and also execute his opponents who were responsible for the coup, and which included his son-in-law. So with these conditions, Mussolini was made the leader. But there was no point. Hitler was losing, and Germany was being checked out of Italy. And finally, in 1945, Mussolini was executed by the people. He and his mistress' bodies were battered, spit upon, hung upside down. So Mussolini killed by the people, and Hitler did not want to meet the same fate. So he made sure, he committed suicide only 2 days after Mussolini committed suicide, and made sure that his SS would burn the bodies of Hitler and his mistress. And only Tojo wanted to kill himself, but he failed. Meanwhile, troops came and arrested him. And he was, of the three, only he was hanged. So Mussolini, the worst, took place. Okay. So what do you say about what is common? Naveen, you want to say something? Sorry, you were saying something before I went for this presentation.
No, nothing, sir. I understand that these wars are much beyond Thucydides' idea.
That is true.
This is not just winning another country because of power calculation.
That's true. There is no calculation. This is insanity. I feel that Hitler's final mission is to commit suicide. If he wins Russia, I think next he will go against Britain or something like that. It is a suicidal instinct. This is not a simple calculation. If they were really calculating, Hitler would have just undone Versailles Treaty, and then
Right.
and he could have stopped there. That would have been an easy thing to do, isn't it? Japan also could have taken some territories and went for a peace treaty. This is not realism. This is madness. They were choosing their ends, and the end was destruction. That is why World War II is not like World War I. World War I is just everybody miscalculated and they got into a trap and they didn't know what to do. But World War II was not like that. Countries didn't know how to handle these madcaps. Till the last minute they were waiting because they thought, okay, he may end, and why initiate a war and make the problem bigger than what it might be otherwise. Why do you drag USA, for example? Why do you drag Russia? If that is not for self-destruction. Do you know, in both the cases, they didn't expect, because they thought other people would behave rationally. On that harbor attack, they got so many warnings, it seems, but still they calculated why would they do it. So they thought that there would be some sabotage mission. So they took precautions against sabotage mission, not an aerial attack. And same thing about Stalin also. Stalin refused to believe this. He was shocked, and for some time he just didn't know how to respond, because so many people were telling him, and he refused. He didn't believe it. Because essentially, what were they thinking? They were just thinking that the other people would act in their self-interest, and they did not. Because it would have made eminently sensible. Just expand and keep quiet. That is just what Bismarck did for his Germany. He expanded, made it unified, and weakened France, and created a balance and kept quiet. This is not realism. This is insanity. So how they convinced people to be a part of that insane mission is an issue in terms of how democracy works, or how fascism or anything. Okay.
Sir, one more thing. Why humiliation is a very big thing for a person?
Thank you. I'm very happy to. If you ask me, I mean, I'm making one very important observation. I believe that is one reason why I wrote a book, Not Man Enough. My main point is that a man should learn to face humiliation. Education should teach that, if you ask me. If one knows how to face humiliation, then only I say one is free. I don't know how much you are understanding.
I can
just take time, please. People think if others are humiliating you, you are losing self-respect. No, self-respect is something respect given to yourself by yourself. Self-respect is not something others give to you. This simple thing is missed. Education should teach handling of humiliation. how you handle humiliation. That is the most important lesson. But what does the society teach? You are humiliated and prove yourself that you are a great man. So you work with wounds. You destroy your life trying to prove yourself. Accept humiliation. Then I would say life is with you. Acceptance of humiliation is the prerequisite for freedom. But nobody teaches you this simple thing. Nobody teaches freedom is something, freedom should be from within, not from somebody else. Hitler was humiliated. He wanted to, basically was a very badly brought up, abusive father. He didn't get what he wanted to prove. So behind so much of violence, decision to prove, backed by humiliation. And personal insult becomes national insult, because that's how he inspires others. So I think the education should teach how to handle humiliation. That should be the first step to make man peaceful, to create a sane society. But people provoke usually. You are insulted like this and prove that how great you are. Life is ruined in that process. Please, Naveen, now you can tell me.
Nothing in particular, sir. I mean, I was just wondering on this point.
Exactly.
We feel so much about the humiliation. We feel we are devastated.
That's
I mean, that leads to revenge.
That's true. That's true. You are right, 100%. I'm completely convinced. Just like he was saying, power shapes knowledge, and I was overwhelmed by it. Just one thing. If you can take this, the entire personal life is changed. Because huge part of what we do is a reaction to humiliation.
You had made this point earlier also.
Okay.
Hello. I mean, our family system. I mean, until we become adults, we were not humiliated at all.
That's
the problem.
That's the problem. That's true.
I mean, all of a sudden we entered into a family life. We make our own personal life. Birth of the humiliation start from our spouses, and that's where we feel perplexed, confused, what to do. I mean, so far our parents were all like, okay, they had the liberty, never criticized us. And all of a sudden there is some sort of criticism which you cannot outrightly reject.
That's true.
That comes from your wife, especially, like anyone's wife.
That is my book on that only, not man enough. So, but main reason I wanted to convey was that the way to accept humiliation, not to react. So that is why. But you know, if China did like this, what are we? No, that is just not like that. A nation should learn, and the nation should teach its citizens to learn. And I'm saying that is a source of freedom. That is a source of freedom. And respecting yourself, that is self-respect. People usually think that you are doing this to me. If you have self-respect, no. Because I respect myself, please, I'm ignoring you.
Sir? Sir, when we, okay, I mean, considering this topic.
Okay, that is what, okay.
So when we are humiliated or when we are not taking a revenge, that also means that we are not standing for our identity. I mean, how to reconcile this identity? And
but why should identity be defined in terms of reacting to them? we should have some idea of what we want to do with our life and pursue it. Try to find out which way you want to go and you go about it. Only when you don't know where to go, you react to all kinds of things. There is one movie, Ravi Teja. Ravi Teja is being attacked by some goons. He's saying, see, if I really come to your field, I will smash you. But I don't want, because I'm interested in these movies. Don't drag me. I think that's the attitude. I'm going somewhere, let me go. So your identity need not be defined in terms of revenge and avenge, like that.
True, sir.
So these are the things that have to be taught, not simply at an individual level, but at national level. That is the source of sanity. What should India do? We set a constitutional goals. We have to move in this direction. Should we be so much worried about what is going on in China, near China border and this? Why? We gave ourselves socialism, secularism, that we the people pursue it. Why are you distracted by all kinds of things?
Sir, as you said,
just one second. So what should be the political objective of India as stated in the constitution? That's all. It is not our political objective to settle scores with China or any other country, Pakistan. And make people everywhere happy, which includes Kashmiris, not to occupy them. So this is a distraction guided by offense. And that too, actually there was no offense. It was presumed propaganda-related offense. So an individual should want, for example, you are writing civil service examination, somebody insults you, you are more likely to not to take it personally. You are more likely to focus on studies. If somebody insults you, you may react, but you are not likely to think of a grand scheme by which in 1 year you will destroy him. But you are more likely to think, we have an exam, do an exam, please. Okay. Like that, life should be like that for an individual and also for a nation. Not to react to people and circumstances around and go in the way that you wanted to go. Otherwise, here 3 mad people, and people believed it. Why? They are the same story of revenge, that greatness, and then. And all these 3 people blamed people in the end. They felt that you did not fight enough. So we need to understand all these 3 were popular. That is a shocking thing. Mobilized. And they realized. Because the story of revenge is a very sweet story. The story of self-reform, reflection, human improvement is not a sweet story. Okay. So others were forced to react. What to do? In defense. But these 3 were aggressive. So what is an important lesson for at an individual level is important at the national level also. These are the things that should be taught, and these should be the basis for foreign policy. Not mediocre sense of revenge. Ganging up, no. What foreign policy contributes to wisdom of Indians? That should be the foreign policy. Spiritual improvement of man. That should be the policy. Not settling old scores. Srikar, now tell me.
Basically, you want to say to essence realization like Socrates.
Exactly. Yes. For nation.
Sir, without humiliation, one cannot, I feel that majority grow through humiliation only rather than seeking self.
That is true, but that is what is happening. But we should change. That is the proposal. People are growing in response to revenge, but people should grow for a different reason. You are right. People are growing, but growing as a response to revenge. People can grow for a different purpose with a different motive. And that will be more natural and happier outcomes. What do you say, Case?
Yes, sir, I will reflect on these topics.
What? You agree? What did you say?
Yes, sir, I will reflect on these topics, sir. But one thing I would like to say, sir, I agree with what you said, that under instances of humiliation, instead of revenge, if we remain patient, then those feelings of anger will pass away, and we can become wiser.
That's true.
We can also promote friendly relations with others.
That's true. More intelligent reactions are possible. That's true. He's giving a practical reason why we shouldn't offend, but I'm looking at even more fundamentally. Eliminate it. I'm taking it as source of freedom, not simply disadvantage of anger, because it's more serious. What do you say, Deepika? You have something to say?
I agree about the humiliation. But then other things like, say, safety of the nation. If that's at stake, what do you do in that case?
You take care of safety. But the issue is, don't go by revenge. Safety. Britain was taking care of safety. America was taking care of safety. But these people are not like that. Revenge is different from taking care of safety. Self-preservation is important.
Humiliation should not drive you.
Exactly. That is the point. Your safety can drive you. That's true. Thank you. Your safety should drive you. Your well-being should drive you, not revenge. Your well-being. I'm not saying you shouldn't take care of yourself. No. You should take care of yourself, and that is why don't take revenge. That is my point.
Yes, I agree.
This is loss of self, loss of freedom, external orientation to your action. And more importantly, what is true of an individual is true of a nation. How individuals can be wise? Similar are the process by which nations also can be wise. And it is based on that we should think of what constitutes a good policy, good foreign policy. Fine. We'll do Chinese Revolution on Saturday. Okay. We have 3 more